If anybody watching this video can name this guy without cheating, I'll owe you a pint. You have absolutely no clue, do you? Well, don't be embarrassed, because I don't think there are more than 100 people in this country who could pick this guy out of a crowd. Yet I believe he could be one of the most important players in this year's 100. This is Sam Wisniewski, and I believe he can be the ultimate wildcard player. You might think I'm a bit crazy at this point, so let's take a step back. To very little fanfare whatsoever, the 100 Wildcard Draft will commence on the 2nd of July, with the 8 crisp-fueled City franchises getting the opportunity to select one previously undrafted player to fill out their squad. The idea of this is to ensure that some of the breakout players from this year's T20 Blast get the opportunity to play in the tournament. The likes of Archie Lennon, Joe Cracknell and Daniel Moriarty should probably hear their names called, and their inclusion will hopefully give the tournament a shot in the arm. It's a great idea, I think, and given how much I love sporting drafts, I've naturally been all over it. Now, usually I'd run some sort of predictive mock draft to try and guess which players would be selected where to kind of flex my sporting knowledge. However, I've run into a small problem. I haven't got even the faintest idea of what on earth these franchises are going to do. Like none. At all. I have a pretty good sense of who I think should be picked. But then again, Jamie Overton was picked up in the 80k range by the Manchester Originals, despite being one of the worst T20 bowlers in history. That's a whole other video though. What I'm trying to say is that these franchises are managed by international coaches who might not watch as much domestic cricket in England as they should. Now, I'm not suggesting Mahela Jayawardene watches a great deal of Haryana cricket either, but the support staff he possesses with the Mumbai Indians hugely outweighs the couple of local coaches that will be supporting the likes of he and Shane Warne in the 100. So given the relative lack of local knowledge these teams possess, it wouldn't surprise me to see them take a known quantity like a late career Tim Bresnan, who's currently a shadow of his former self, or whoever they watched on TV the night before the draft. It's a predictive nightmare, and frankly I have no idea what on earth is going to happen. So rather than show you my crystal ball and attempt to predict what Shane Warne is going to do, I'm doing something a bit different. I'm going to outline the process that I think teams should be following as they lock in their wildcard picks later this week. It's a pretty basic theory, but we'll need a bit of background and some simple maths for it to make sense. In a traditional T20 format league, without the stupid IPL or Big Bash postseason structure, the only thing teams should worry about, in my opinion, is making the semi-finals. That's all you need to do. Weird things happen in knockout games, so all you need to do is get to the big day and give yourself a shot at the crown. Just look at the Essex side that won the T20 Blast in 2019. They snuck into the quarterfinals with the same amount of wins as the 8th placed side in their group, thanks to 4 washouts, and then beat Lancashire at that stage because Dane Villas decided to bowl Liam Livingstone at the death over Saqib Mahmood. They got incredibly lucky just to get to finals day, and then, without both of their overseas stars in Adam Zampa and Mohammad Amir, somehow managed to win the final with this bowling lineup. It's a hodgepodge of part-timers, a couple of decent spinners, Ravi Bopara and 2 red ball specialist seamers. It's a mess, but on a slow, spinning surface, they brought the title home. Since then, however, they've won just 5 out of 19 games in the T20 format. Now, I know they've lost Ravi Bopara and are very much prioritising youth right now, but the point stands. If you make it to finals day, anything can happen. So how is my imaginary 100 team going to make finals day? Allow me to explain. To make the final 4 of an 8-team tournament, you don't need to win every game. You just need to win the 4th most games, which for most teams means winning about 60% of your games in the tournament. The 100 is an 8-game tournament, so all a team needs to do to guarantee qualification is to win 5 games out of 8. Now, on the assumption that I've built my team to a pretty decent standard, I'm going to guess that we'll probably win half our games. So with that premise, all I need to do to ensure that I get to finals day is to find one more win. So when one game can make all the difference, teams should have a very definitive strategy for their wildcard pick. You should be looking for a difference maker. Somebody who can win you a game potentially out of nowhere. I mean, you already have your full squad in place, and if you're competent at team building, you should have a pretty balanced side at your disposal. I mean, if you're coming into this without a passable domestic seamer, your process so far has been suspect to say the least. I personally think that a number of the 100 teams have been put together very badly, in part due to how new the draft process is to cricket, but I'll come back to that another time. My point is that if you are competent enough, you should have a pretty balanced squad already. Depth also shouldn't be a consideration in my mind. I think depth is one of the most overrated aspects of team building in T20 cricket. This isn't a contact sport. Your seamers don't tend to all fall apart at once, so those depth guys will likely just sit on the bench. And what's the point in that? You can always get an emergency replacement if needed, so unless someone absolutely fantastic is broken out in the blast who you think can be a quality starter, don't worry about adding strength and depth. Whereas depth players can't make a difference on the bench, but a specialist situational player can. So what is a specialist situational player? I would define one as a lesser known cricketer who isn't an all-round star, but is very good at a specific part of the game. Liam Travaskis is a great example. As he came up through the age groups with Durham, there was a lot of expectation about his ability as a batsman, as shown by the fact he was handed a first-class debut at just 18. But that potential never really materialised. 4 years later, he has just 2 career 50s with the bat, and whilst his left arm spin was deemed useful, he averages just 76 with the ball in first-class cricket. That's just not going to cut it. Travaskis has, however, found himself a niche in Durham's T20 side as a specialist power play spinner. His job is primarily to bowl with the new ball with the field up and keep the runs down, and then maybe finish off his quota in the middle overs if needed. Travaskis is really good at this, and is especially useful on slower tracks where he can be very difficult to get away, which is why he's found a lot of success playing at Durham. This creates a really interesting possibility for a 100 team, I think. Say you are the Welsh Fire and you're playing away against the Manchester Originals. You know that Old Trafford is a traditionally tacky surface where runs can be hard to come by when the ball gets soft, and know that the Manchester Original openers will want to attack your seamers early. So in this specific situation, picking Travaskis to sneak through 15 power play deliveries could be a great option. On such a tough surface to score on outside the power play, if he goes for less than 20 runs or so in his 15 balls, that's a huge advantage that can win you a game. And that's all he needs to do. If he wins just one game for his franchise by bowling a very economical 10-15 ball spell in the power play, he becomes unbelievably valuable. So unless you have a clearly transcendent starter in your sights at your pick, such as Surrey's Daniel Moriarty, I think you need to be looking for those surprise game changers who can turn your season around within 20 deliveries. Now, whilst the likes of Aaron Lilly, Ed Pollock and Liam Travaskis really intrigue me in this regard for different reasons, I have my eyes on something a little bit more rare. Wrist spin. Specifically left arm wrist spin. It is by far the rarest type of bowling in cricketing history. I mean, you just don't see a great deal of it, even in the modern age. Think, how many left arm leg spinners in today's game can you actually name? It's not many, is it? From my general investigating, here are the left arm wrist spinners playing at a high standard across the global scene right now. You've got India's Kuldeep Yadav, South Africa's Tabraiz Shamsi and Sri Lanka's Lakshan Sandakan, who all play on the international stage. Then you've got Australia's Darcy Short, who is more of a batsman really. The 3 Afghan operators in Zahir Khan, Waqar Salamkheil, the 17-year-old Test debutant with a thinning hairline, and Noor Ahmad. And then you've got the 2 Melbourne Stars spinners in Liam Bowe and Clint Hinchcliffe, and finally the Birmingham Bears' very own Jake Lintott. That's 10. Just 10. And one of these guys is a batsman. Furthermore, most of these guys really aren't that prominent. Liam Bowe has just 11 wickets to his name in the Big Bash and is better known as a Harry Potter lookalike. Clint Hinchcliffe has had a useful start to his T20 career, but has only played 1 first-class game as he nears 25 years of age. And Noor Ahmad may be appearing across the franchise circuit, but he's just 16 years old. Left-arm leg spin is just really rare, and that means that most batsmen in the world just don't face it that much, if at all. The release point, the angle and the variations make it very difficult to play without experience, and that brings a huge advantage to those very rare few who practice this witchcraft. You might think I'm over-exaggerating here, but look at this graph of the career records of the best current English spin bowlers in T20 cricket. Who do you reckon that is? It's not Adil Rashid. It's not Danny Briggs. It's not even the great Liam Dawson. It's Jake Linter. Now, his sample size of just 18 T20 games is very small and plays into his favour, but that's my point. Nobody has faced him, and that means nobody knows how to face him. That's why I think he should be one of the wildcard picks for the 100. He has a leg spinner, a googly and a slider, and there isn't enough tape for analysts to work out how to pick him without insider info. Again, it's a small sample size, but that economy of 6.81 whilst taking his wickets at under 20 apiece is exceptional. He's also taking wickets every 17.4 deliveries, which is less than one more ball per wicket than Rashid Khan. That level of rarity makes a huge difference, and should earn Linter 100 gig. Again, if he turns just one game for you by rattling through a middle order, that's extremely valuable. So I'd be hugely tempted to bring him in. But what if you wanted to go even rarer than Linter? Well, that brings us back to our guy Sam Wisniewski. I didn't include him in that list of left-arm leg spinners because he's played just 2 career T20 games, and in those 2 games he bowled just 24 deliveries. Yet I think he could be the perfect wildcard selection for a 100 team. Mainly because nobody knows anything about him. He played a couple of games in the T10 tournament over the winter, but other than that he's a complete mystery. Literally nobody outside of Yorkshire knows anything about him. So if you throw him in as a surprise for one group stage game, it could be utter chaos. And as I said, all he needs to do is win you one game. That's it. He doesn't need to play in every game. In fact, I'd argue he shouldn't play in every game. But when you see a favourable matchup and know he can add an edge to your bowling attack, you call his number and play the card. Maybe it doesn't work out, but there is a chance he delivers 15 balls of utter chaos that wins you a game and takes you to finals day. And when you get there, anything can happen.